Gaining muscle is a slow and lengthy process. It might be months before you notice a substantial visual change with muscle growth, and it might be years before you actually get to your desired outcome. So, how do we know you're actually making progress towards your goals in the short term on the month to month basis? We're going to go through factors that impact muscle growth, what you can expect at year one of training up to say year seven. And then we're also going to go through a checklist that you can go through if ever you're wondering or second guessing if you're moving in the right direction. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is the bar chart on the left here. You can see that there's kilos gained along the left and years of training along the bottom there. Now, this is not pulled from any research paper. I'm not telling you you're going to gain 10 kilos in your first year, but what I want you to see is the trend here. Year one, you're going to gain the most amount of muscle by a good bit. Year two, it drops off. Year three, it drops off, but it's still a substantial amount of gain. After you get on past year 5, 6, 7, things really start to slow down. You are going to make most of your progress in your first 3 years of training, as long as you're in a good training plan and you're very consistent with what you should be doing. And there are many more factors that are going to impact your rates of muscle gain. So we've gone through training age there. You're going to gain a lot more muscle mass on year one than you will on year 5. But your actual age is a consideration as well. If you're in your 50s, 60s, or even 70s, you're not going to be gaining as much muscle mass as somebody in their late teens, early 20s. You just won't have as much testosterone, and you have a whole load of extra life stressors that get in the way too. Gender is another consideration as well. Men have a lot more testosterone than women, can recover and grow muscle mass an awful lot faster. The training protocol that you're on, how many days a week you're training, the intensity you're training with, the volume you're training with, are all considerations. We have diet strategy. Are you consuming the correct amount of protein for you to be gaining muscle mass optimally? Are you in a gaining phase, so in a caloric surplus, or in a calorie deficit, so trying to lose body weight? These are going to impact your rates of progress. You're going to gain muscle mass faster if you're in a gaining phase. If you're overfeeding yourself and giving your body more resources than it needs to sustain your body weight, it will use those extra resources to help with the recovery process and building muscle mass. If you're in a fat loss phase, by definition, you are starving yourself somewhat. You don't even have enough resources to sustain your body weight. So some anabolic processes slow down. Consistency with your training, your nutrition, your sleep, your stress. Like, are you hitting your protein intake every day, or is it every other day? Are you hitting all of your training sessions throughout the month? Are you missing sessions here and there, as you go through your 8 or 12 week block of training? Genetics are going to play a massive role in your muscle building potential. Some people can just grow muscle like that. Some people, it just takes an awful lot longer. And that's for multiple different reasons that we don't have to get into here. But just know that you should never compare your progress to someone else's progress, because it's your body. Your genetics are different. Your makeup is different as well. So how do we actually know you're on the right path? When you're training hard, you're eating well, and you're not seeing these changes on a week-to-week basis. As I said, muscle building is just a super slow, lengthy process. How do you actually know you're on the right path? We have direct measurement and we have indirect measurement. Most people actually use these the wrong way around. So direct measurements should be used over the long term, over several months. So the first one is visual appearance. Do you look better? Do you look bigger? Are you more muscular looking? Tape measurements. Is your bicep bigger? Is your quad bigger? Is your chest girth measurement bigger? Skin fold measurements, which is a way of measuring body fat levels. And then you can also use a DEXA scan or a bioimpedance scale for the same thing as well. Now, these things only really work over the long term, and there are plenty of drawbacks. For instance, with progress pictures, you could take a picture in a month's time in the same place, but you might be constipated, you might be dehydrated, you might have better or worse lighting, you might have a pump. There's so many things that are going to impact that, so you can't honestly say, I look way better in this picture a month later, unless all those variables are equated for, So the direct measurements are used over the course of several months when you can see a dramatic change. Now, the way in which I want you to judge your progress on a week-to-week basis, rather than flexing in the mirror and, looking for these changes, watching paint dry, I want you to be using indirect measurements. What do I mean by that? There's a couple of different ways, and I want you to combine all of them to get a really good all-round picture. And the first one is, are you progressing in strength in the hypertrophy rep range? And all that means is, say, from 6 to 20 or 30 reps, are you getting stronger on a week-to-week basis, on a month-to-month basis? If you have that checked off, very, very good sign. Are you feeling a pump in the target tissues? When you go in and train your biceps and triceps, are you feeling a pump in your bicep and your tricep? Are you feeling disruption in the muscle? Are you able to get a good mind-muscle connection? They're all good telltale signs you're doing the right thing in the gym. Are you feeling pain, or more specifically DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, in the target tissues that you had worked 1 to 2 days after that training session? So 2 days ago, I trained back and biceps. If I squeeze my back, yeah, I know I've done a session 2 days ago, squeeze my bicep, yeah, it's pretty damn sore. I wouldn't like to do a back and bicep session today. It's another good telltale sign what you've done in the gym has been beneficial. There's some disruption happening there. Now, you have to be careful with this one, because you can be chasing DOMs. You can look for that delayed onset muscle soreness, and it might not serve you. So if you go and change exercises every time you go into the gym, you're going to be sore, and probably more sore than if you stayed on the same program for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. But that's just because it's a novel stimulus. In the same way that if you're not used to running and you go for a run tomorrow, you do a 3K, the day after that, you're going to be incredibly sore, but it doesn't mean you're growing muscle mass. So when I'm saying look out for the DOMS and delayed onset muscle soreness, it's specific to your hypertrophy program, the program that you're doing now. Are you still getting pain in the target muscles? And do you feel like there's some disruption after happening there? It's not the be all and end all, but it's a good telltale sign that you're on the right track. The last indirect measurement to keep an eye on is your body weight. Now, if your sole goal is to pack on muscle mass, you should be in a calorie surplus. You should be putting on some size. And in this case, your body weight would be climbing. So if your body weight is climbing at about 1% of your total body weight per month, you can be rest assured you're putting on muscle mass, particularly if you've checked off the other 3 boxes. Now, this doesn't apply to somebody whose primary goal is to lose body fat, but we will have already explained that to you. There's an opportunity cost if you go into a calorie surplus, which is that you might put on a little bit of fat mass. There's also an opportunity cost if you go into a fat loss phase, that you might be putting on muscle mass as fast as you would if you were eating more food. But that's the trade-off that we've made. So if it's a case that you are in a fat loss phase, you can't reliably look at body weight and say, yeah, I'm doing the right or wrong thing. You have to look at the 3 other indicators, particularly the strength progress. When you're in a fat loss phase and you're wanting to build muscle, or at least retain the muscle that you've built, you want to make sure that your numbers in the gym are staying up, at best progressing, at worst stagnating. So in short, don't use direct measurements on a week-to-week and even a month-to-month basis in some cases, because building muscle mass is like watching paint dry. It takes a very, very long time. If you feel like you're unsure about your rates of progress, that's totally normal. This process takes months and years and years and years and years to get to your desired outcome. So what you need to be doing is looking at the indirect measurements, and as long as you're checking those off, you follow the plan and you keep moving. It's when you look back in 3, 6, 9, 12 months time, that's when you realize that you've put on a substantial amount of muscle mass. Now, if you have any questions or queries off the back end of this, please do let me know. Otherwise, thanks for listening to me, and I shall see you in the next one.